In the first presentation in this series, I outlined the benefits of the Voluntary Disclosure Program and how it will extend from 1 November 2010 to 31 October 2011. That's all great, but now we need to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Okay, so how do you go about applying? Well, it's quite simple. You can either contact SARS and get them to send you the form, or at your convenience, on a couple of clicks, you can get it through e-filing. And the form itself is quite simple. It looks something like that. It's called a VDP 01, and you can see that most of the information required on the form is just basically names, addresses, telephone numbers. But let's go into the application in a little bit more detail. You're going to have to submit the following information: names, addresses, telephone numbers, identity numbers, etc. That's all the usual stuff that you do in any SARS communication. The address of your representative who might be helping you, including contact details. The tax years and reporting periods that are involved in the disclosure. The following supporting information is needed: the amount of the disclosure, the types of tax involved, the types of returns involved, the types of omissions or defaults involved, and the reason for the omission or non-compliance. I presume that would be tax evasion. Your primary business activity, and an explanation of how the applicant considers that the relevant requirements have been met. Strictly speaking, SARS can go back and assess this over as many years as it wants to. But SARS has taken a very pragmatic view on this. They say they won't go back more than 5 years because you are not required to keep your returns for more than 5 years. So in assessing whether you're going to go for this thing, go back 5 years and you can get an idea of what you are in for. The outcomes: how will you know if your application has been successful? Well, if successful, SARS will write to you and say, we are going to enter into an agreement to cover the following. We will grant relief in terms of the VDP program. You will pay the following amounts of outstanding tax, and the agreement will be null and void if SARS subsequently determines that the disclosure did not constitute a valid disclosure, and that this agreement is kept confidential. Then, what happens if your application is not successful? SARS would communicate that to you in writing, and they would say no further steps will be taken. We consider this application closed. Now, that's what they're saying. We don't know what they're going to do with it from there on. The important thing is to assess whether you're going to get it in advance, and that is really a possible thing to do, because the only grounds for not giving you an approval is that you haven't told the full story. Under what circumstances can relief granted under the tax VDP be withdrawn? SARS can withdraw if we did not meet the requirements, i.e. that there has not been full disclosure, and that's the important issue in the whole thing. Come forward and tell the full story. What are the consequences if the VDP has been withdrawn? If the relief is withdrawn, SARS will treat any payment that has been made pursuant to the VDP program as a part payment towards further tax obligations. In the event of the relief being withdrawn, what recourse is available? Well, that action would be subject to objection, appeal, or review. There's only one question: do you take the deal? And the issue there is, look into the future. In the future, we're going to live under the Tax Administration Act. There, things are going to be a tremendous amount tougher than they are today with regard to interest, penalty, and criminal charges. And what we have to say is, facing the future, we don't want to be in a position where we are judged on some silly things that we did in the past. People still ask me, do you take the deal? I say, take the deal or emigrate. South Africa is not a place to get into trouble.